Welcome to GoGoPreneur, where Gogo Bethke, your host, interviews badass rock star entrepreneurs of the world, figuring out who they are, how they got to where they're at, and the lessons they learned along the way, so you can learn those lessons and turn it into money. Let's go get them.
Well, hello everyone. In this episode of GoGoPreneur, I am super excited. Our guest is Dominic Milano, and even though I haven't met him in person yet, I feel like I know him because we have spent countless hours of phone calls, text, and Zoom calls together. He's actually the one who reached out to me, and he's the reason why GoGoPreneur Today is a TV show on Your Home TV. He is one of the, my understanding is founders, but also managing directors of Your Home TV, which is a national network of streaming television. So we are definitely going to talk about that today. But Dominic he's kind of a wealth of knowledge in a lot of different industries. So for example, he's been in the mortgage industry for over 40 years. He's also a best-selling author, but he's also a music producer. So we are going to cover everything today, from marketing and telling your story to your audience and reaching your audience a way that they need to understand your brand, right? But also just everything in between. So let me bring Dominic Milano right up. And hello, my GoGoPreneur friends. Are you frustrated by not knowing how to reach that 7-digit mark in your business? Maybe kind of like stuck in the progress? I want to invite you to GoGetEmCommunity.com. It is your last stop to becoming a 7-digit entrepreneur. You will have access to monthly live calls with me and industry experts and Q&As at the end. Every training video is recorded. We have a massive knowledge library. You will have access to my team. Tuesdays for Tech Tuesdays and Wednesdays, you have direct access to my VAs. Ask them absolutely anything, how we have built everything in all of my businesses. You will have access to a private Facebook group and a private Facebook chat. And that's where I communicate directly with all of our members. That's where I share my thoughts, my ideas, a new app, books that I'm reading, videos that I'm watching, anything I'm feeding to my brain, any systems that I'm implementing into my business. That is your direct access to me, your direct access to each other and like-minded entrepreneurs in the industry. Join us today to transform your business. Go to GoGetEmCommunity.com. Say hello, Dominic.
Hello, everyone. It's always a pleasure to see you, Gogo, because you're always so bright and cheery.
I try.
Trust
me, not always.
You just have such a light about you that I think that's one of the things that attracts people to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. My team will be able to shed some light on my dark side too. Not every day is sunny and 75, right? There are some dark sides of entrepreneurship, and I'm sure at some point we get to talk about both sides, right? But who is Dominic? So tell us a little bit about you. Like, start with childhood so we can understand you as a human, and we'll end up in the whole entrepreneurial grown-up side of life.
Sure. So, both of my parents are first generation, Americans.
Okay.
So their parents came from my dad's parents came from Italy, and my mother's parents came from Scotland. So I have an interesting cultural background, because you think of the stories, of Italy and Rome, and you think of all the Scottish stories like William Wallace and Braveheart, and so I grew up with a lot of the old stories being told to me from the old country by my grandparents.
I feel like that's who I am to my children, probably.
Yes, that's exactly right. You have a lot to add to their lives, and
Yeah.
I think it's so important in how we grow up. So, I have a brother and a sister, an older sister and a younger brother, um, and I was brought up with a heavy focus on family, um, traditions, honesty, the value of your name, how important your reputation was. So growing up, it was important for me never to do anything to besmirch the family name. It was very important. Then I was also went to Catholic schools my whole life, from grammar school through college. So there was a big guilt factor involved also in everything. So,
I'm laughing because it's probably an Eastern European thing, or more of a culture thing from that side of the world. But my dad used to say all the time, as I was leaving the house to go to like a party or, go hang out with friends or something, he always said, don't let your reputation get home before you do.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's so true, right? So, um, growing up in that environment, you become very introspective about things,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I always remember that sticks out to me is that my father was in banking business, and then ultimately in the mortgage business.
Oh,
So he was a
that's how you got
very
into mortgages?
yes, it was, and I got into it basically by mistake, but or let's say it wasn't my first choice. I was very athletic growing up, playing all sorts of sports, and that was like the main focus growing up for me. I mean, that was all I wanted to do. But also, my father was very good because what he would do with us, all three of us kids, at some point would sit us down and he would, at night, instead of watching TV, he would read to us um, stories, books, but also poetry. He had this old anthology that he had in high school, and it had and all the poetry in that and the prose and the stories made such an impact on him that he wanted to share them with us.
What is anthology?
An anthology is just a collection. It
Okay.
was basically his high school literature textbook that he kept because he valued it so much. And he would read to us the poems that had an impact on his life. Um, and the way he read them with such enthusiasm and such, feeling, and the way he would explain the meanings of them after he was done had such an impact on me. Um, to this day, I've given speeches before. I ran sales and marketing at a GE company, and I would sometimes start my speeches out by quoting some of these poems. One of them was called Opportunity by, who was that? Edward Arlington Robinson, where it was about this fellow who was, a prince, and he had this great sword, and he was in a battle, and everybody was jealous of him because of the sword he had, and they thought that the sword was what gave him all of his victories and his strength. But then in one battle, the sword gets broken, and everybody is looking at him like he's going to lose this battle. But then he picks up that broken sword and still goes ahead and wins the victory. And it's just showing, that it's about character. It's not about the tools that you have that creates someone's success. I would use that. There was another one called The Fool, and it was about this king who would always ask this jester to come and entertain him. Um, and then there was one line in there that influenced my life um, just profoundly, and it says, "The ill-timed truth we might have kept to ourselves. Who knows how sharp that pierced and stung the person you said it to? But the truth we had not sense to say, who knows how gladly it had rung." Meaning, the things we keep tell people and hurt them without thinking, and the nice things that we don't say to people, and the difference that that can make in their lives. So, it's just that there was what I learned was the power of storytelling, the power of creating images in people's minds, and the impact that that can have on them forever.
The
Um,
best storytellers, I want to say the best marketer wins, but the best marketers are the best storytellers.
and that is absolutely true, and it is becoming more and more so. There was another quote that I've always loved. It's an old Native American proverb that says, "Those who tell stories rule the world." Um, and then more recently, I heard another quote from Steve Jobs, which I think he probably got from that. He said, "The most powerful people in the world are the storytellers." And there's a little bit more to it after that, but It
Yeah,
really is
I
true.
realized that at the last Tony Robbins event because it was like my 17th Tony Robbins event, right? And you didn't realize at first that most of the things that he teaches, he explains these like life concepts through a story that happened to him, right? So that's really what gets stuck in your head. It's the story itself. It's not the, if he said the line of the best marketer wins, right? Like it probably wouldn't register in your head than if he explains it through a story. And then at this last event, I realized I'm like, oh my gosh, I heard these stories so many times, right? But I realized everything that he teaches is a story. It's
Exactly.
explaining a story, and then through the story, you get to the concept. It's not just that you say the concept with words because it's not going to nail it in. The person on the receiving end is not going to have the understanding unless they understand the story.
Well, it doesn't. Facts and figures come at us, product descriptions, that sort of thing. They don't get into your soul. They don't get into your heart. You tell somebody a story, and it's going to stay there forever. They're going to remember, and that's what they're going to repeat. They're not going to go say, "Well, Gogo is so great. She's done this number of sales and this many people working with her." And this, what they'll do is there was a story that Gogo told me about when she came from Romania, and then that's the story that gets repeated about you to help people know who you are,
Yeah.
not the facts and the stats.
Mm-mm.
That's what gets into people, and that's what Gogo. That's what drew me to you to invite you, to have a show on your home TV because your story to me was so interesting and so compelling. Now, I also, was very impressed with your influence, and but that came after your story for me.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I think they kind of both go hand in hand, right? I think both is super important. You have to kind of share the facts because that's proof that what you're doing is working, and that's the result, and you got an award or things like that, right? But you can't use that for selling a product or generating traffic to a website, or I mean, like that's not what it's used for. Those are the stories that really going to stay in people's hearts, and that's why they follow you, right? And then through that social media feed, through the other cute little stories in your stories that going to keep them
yeah,
staying.
from an entrepreneurial standpoint, you think about someone goes to the trouble of creating a business, that they're obviously passionate about because they went through the agony of creating a company and a concept. Um, and so many times where they fail is that they don't impart that enthusiasm and excitement to the public, to their customer base, to their targets, prospects. Um, and that's because they fail to tell the story. Um, at least initially. That's how you have to get people interested and on board with your vision. The vision, you start out as an entrepreneur, you have a dream. I would like
Yeah.
someday to do this, right? And I'm sure you have a little story in your head that you're telling about how I'm going to do it and why and what it's going to be like in the end. And then you create a vision statement, right? Here's my vision. How do you translate that vision into reality? Well, you've got to connect it through a storyline.
Yeah.
You when let me give you some examples. So, um, I started out writing poetry because after my dad started reading it to us, I became interested in it. And then I actually read a poem that he wrote, and it blew my mind. I was like, my father actually wrote this, and it was about my sister and when she was born and all this kind of stuff, right? So it really impressed me. So I started doing that when my children were born. I wanted to copy that. That was my example, my mentor, right? So I started doing that, and they were okay, but they were like just facts. They were just like snapshots. There was nothing tying it together into a story. So then I'm not a journaler. I mean, I know Tony talks about this a little bit, but um, so what I would do is I had a little book that I would, when I was traveling, my wife would call me and say, "Oh, Joey did this little funny thing today, or Alexandra did this," and so I would write the stuff down and then create a little story around it, and then put that story into a poetry format. And I still have. I've got 3 books of them, and that all became my first book, which was a book of poetry called safe at home. And it's all about family life and the journey of that. And it's it's pretty. I really enjoyed writing it. Um,
That's awesome.
and then the next thing for me evolved into story, full blown storytelling. So the first thing I wrote was a children's story. Again, everything I write was really for my family and with my family as the core of it. But it's not about me; it's about the greater family always. So then I wrote the children's book, and then that just evolved into the next five novels, um, and just expanded that. But my vision and my dream was to start writing like my dad did. How am I going to do that? Took some practice, and then learning about it, but really evolving. And that's that's what an entrepreneur needs to do, is evolve from this hard-nosed business person with a dream into how do I create this beautiful story out of what I've done so other people get attracted to me. And when we think about marketing, again, they go, sometimes they fail a little bit because they're out there just telling why their product is the best, how it compares, facts and figures, pricing. But what they really need to do is tell their story, and I think that's incredibly important. And I think you do that really well with your business.
I thank you. I mean, I don't know where storytelling comes from me. I just enjoy helping. And I feel like if I'm
Hmm.
explaining something of like, hey, if you want this, and then I have to explain what I went through, where I started and how I got there, and what I learned in the middle, and what they can learn if they do the same thing, right? So for me, it's not, I can't say that it's in my genes. I can't say that I inherited it from someone. I can't say that I learned it in college because I don't have college education either. I think I just, maybe because that's how I learn, right? Like I keep going to a Tony Robbins event and he explains to me things through stories, and that's how it sticks in my head and I understand the concept. So I just second-handedly, I feel like inherited the steps to the process without realizing that I'm doing it, right?
I think that's really true, right? You're doing what has made an impact in your life,
I
and
think we
you're just
teach the way we learn.
it is. It's the way we most effectively internalize the information that we're trying to learn.
Yeah,
It
because look at
really,
you, like you learned those concepts through a poem, so then you decided to create poems for others to
right,
learn these concepts, right? So it's
right,
like,
and
yeah, we
yeah.
learn, we teach the way we learn.
Right. And every, the most effective things that I do all have to do with stories. I remember there was a couple of impactful things for me. One was when I graduated from Villanova University. I had a degree in accounting, right? But I really didn't like it, but it was useful. And my dad was in banking, so it was good for business. But in my own story, I was going to be playing professional baseball. So that was my story. That's what I've always told myself. That was what I was always going to do. I played in college. I played at Villanova. I had a great senior year, had a number of tryouts, and it didn't work. Now I had no other story. I was
You
I
had
mean,
no plan B.
I was lost. I didn't know what to do. So I went and I got my MBA in banking and finance, but I still really didn't have a full story. So then I had to start creating in my own mind, what does my next 30 years look like? I have no idea. I don't have a story for it. So then I started to slowly create this story. And my dad and a mentor of mine, Hal Levine, were the ones who suggested that why don't you go work for Hal? Hal is in the mortgage insurance business, and
And who
he
was
needs Hal Levine was a regional manager at an old a mortgage insurance company called Virex.
But
Back
didn't your dad also do mortgages? How come you didn't work with
Yeah, my
him?
dad was with Sunrise Federal Savings and Loan, and he was, he was into mortgages, and that's how he and Hal became best friends
Okay, so
because
you
Hal
didn't
was in
work with
mortgage.
your dad. You just did
I,
what your dad did.
I did what right, and I did what my dad told me to do. So he said, "Look, just trust me. Go work for Hal. You'll learn the business from Hal. It's a good spot for you. It's in sales, and that was something I really never wanted to do because I'm kind of an introvert. And it was had something to do with insurance, which was the last thing I ever wanted to go near in my life. I was going to go play baseball. I don't want to know about sales. I don't know about insurance. But so then, I started creating small stories.
Yeah.
Like, how is this day going to go for me? And then how is this first year for me going to look? What arc am I going to write for myself? And then it was, what's the next year look like, and the next year? And I created these different stories. And ultimately, that's how I kind of survived those first 3
Ultimately,
years,
42 years later.
42 years later of telling stories to myself. But interesting, though, I got out of the mortgage insurance business,
Yeah.
um, after I was in it for about 31 years. And I went to do wholesale lending, correspondent lending, reverse mortgages during the crisis, during the 2008. It really, everybody was kind of
Yeah.
short-term jobs, right? And then in I think it was 2012, I got a call from a company that was looking to start a brand new mortgage insurance company, National Mortgage Insurance (NMI), and they knew I had been in the business for many years. They were looking for experienced people. So that was so exciting for me because now I can write this whole brand new story about how this company is different and why we're different. So when I would go and talk to people, we had zero market share. What do you do? How do you break into a business that's 50 years old, all these established players, and you have no market share and nobody knows who you are? Well, you tell the story. Why are we doing this? What is so great about us starting this brand new Emma company? Why is it good for you? And I would just tell the story about how we're new and different. We've got great capital base. We're going to be disruptive. We're not going to do this like everybody else did. And I would not talk about the facts and the figures and the pricing of our business. I created excitement around this new concept and how it was going to be different. And people were willing to say, hey, okay, I'll give you a small share of my business. Let's just, because I love the story. So that grew, and then by the time I left there, by the time I retired, it was I don't know, we were at 15 or 16% market share in the mortgage insurance business in about 7 years. It was a tremendous thing. So, and everyone who worked for me learned the idea that here's the story I want you to tell when you go in. Put your own twist on it. Put your own enthusiasm in there. So, um, you know, I love when I have an opportunity to create a new story for myself and the people I'm going to be working with or for or pitching to.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was very impactful for me was for years I had a prison ministry where I would go into the prison here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and do a Bible study. All right. But
Wow.
really, ultimately, what it was trying to connect with these guys, and find out with them. And I would go in there initially and would start and would sit there and would read from the Bible and would read the stories and that sort of stuff. And it was just not connecting, there was just not a connection. Then what we did is we kind of put that aside for a little bit and we decided to share stories with each other. Now, trying to get these guys that are in prison, and it's the full boat. I mean, it's murder, theft, embezzlement. These guys are there for a long time. A lot of them don't want to tell their stories. They don't, they really don't want to connect on that level. But when we started sharing stories, because we'd have kind of the same group of people at men at the table every week, the barriers started coming down, and like they hadn't heard each other's stories, and then of course when they asked me about my stories, I have to be completely transparent and honest. Like if I'm going to expect that from them, they've got to be, tell me, that they've got to be expect that from me. And you can't connect with someone if you're telling them your stories about your successes, about where, I remember the time that, I created this or that. You got to start telling their stories with your failures. You have to start telling stories that connect with them at their lowest points. And
Yeah,
then
they
you
have to
can go,
find something in common with you. I mean, it's important not just, I think, especially in the business world, it's important to allow people to get to know you on the personal level too, right? Especially if you're a coach or if you're a team leader or if you are in the
yep,
in the people business, in the human capital, as I'd like to call it, right? Like a couple of days ago, I shared I had a hell of a night with type 1 diabetes. Like it kicked my ass, excuse my French, and I was like, diabetes can kiss my ass. Like I was so mad in the morning because my oldest is type 1 diabetic, and we just had a hell of a night with his blood sugars, and it was almost 5 o'clock in the morning by the time I finally like it was 4:45 by the time I finally could go back to bed, and I had a full day. Like it was a Monday, which for me is a full day back to back to back Zoom call. So I had to be up at 8 and ready to go and shoot and makeup at it, all that, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm literally running on 2.25 hours of sleep. Like this is ridiculous, right? But by sharing the story, I got so many messages from other people that didn't know that I have a type 1 diabetic, who also have a type 1 diabetic, or their father was type 1 diabetic, and they went through the childhood of, you have no idea, go, how many times the ambulance got called to our house because of my dad, right? So it helps them. And it helps me too, knowing that I'm not the only one, right? Knowing that I'm not alone in this situation of trying to be an entrepreneur with a type 1 diabetic child, but also helps people understand that I don't have it easy. Because sometimes we look at these people that we look up to, and they just make it look so easy because we don't talk about the bad, the good, and the ugly, right? We just, most of the time, you'll see people just talk about the good, right? And there is, just like when you introduced me earlier, you said that I'm so bubbly and so happy-go-lucky. Yes, most of the time, right? But I don't want people to think that I don't have a dark side. I do. There are times when I lose my shit, excuse my French, right? But I also feel like, just as you said, entrepreneurship is not easy, right? Like
no.
it will kick your butt on a day-to-day basis. So I want people to be prepared for it. Not just, yes, it's nice when the hard work pays off, but the hard work portion is not nice all the time. But
Well,
through the
absolutely.
stories, what I wanted to say is through allowing people to get to know some of my stories, like for example the type 1 diabetes stories just 2 days ago, or when I lost my front tooth. Like I don't think you knew me then, or maybe you followed me, Dan, but I didn't have a front tooth for 8 months. Like 8 months I didn't have a front tooth, right? And I was like the social media queen of real estate. I'm like, I don't even have a front tooth. But you have no idea how many followers and how many stories and how many emails I got because I allowed people to get to see the reality. And I shared my story of what happened to my front tooth.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really the other half of the equation is invite people to tell you their stories. So once you share, right, then you can say, especially for example, if you're calling on somebody and this is a prospect in your business, and you tell them what you're all excited about, the company you've created and the story you want to tell. Ask them about their story because they'll have a story too. The connection that gets created when you share each other's creation stories or history stories or vision stories is just incredible. It's very, very powerful because people
That's
talk about the
exactly that's exactly what I
relationship.
use in my agent attraction calls, right? So I talk about the opportunity for agents to partner with me here at EXP, and I say, hey, if you want to partner with me, comment the word partner. By the way, you can also comment the word partner, or just go to gogobethke.com and go to my partner with me page, and I would love to have the opportunity to talking with you about partnering at EXP. But what happens on the call, right, is that they come on, we chitty chat for a minute, and then I go right into my question. Hey, tell me a little bit about you and where are you in your career? And then I shut up, right? And I listen, right? Because again, through their stories that they're sharing with you by explaining who they are and how long they've been in the industry and what they have achieved, what they haven't achieved, and why they need you, right? Or why they want to partner with you, right? You actually get to know who they are, where they at, in their story, and then you can hold a conversation by finding a common ground and not talking over them on something they don't want to know anything about, right? So if I'm talking to a brand new agent, I'm not going to explain revenue share because all they want is leads. All they want is learn how to do the first transaction on the listing side, how to do it on the buy side. That's totally different than when I'm talking to someone who's been in the industry for 40 years and they're ready to retire and they spent 40 years of their life, but they have nothing to show for besides the next commission, right? That's a totally different conversation. But I wouldn't know what they want to hear unless I ask the question for them to explain me who they are and their story, and then I know where to meet them.
Right.
And that's how you close them every single time, is by listening to their story and meeting them where they at and only giving them information that they want to hear.
Yes, and in the way they want to receive it. You're 100% right. Yeah, and that's very powerful. And we talk about, relationship building or relationship sales. The most powerful way you can do that is to know each other's story. I don't know, honestly, GoGo, I thought of it, many times I thought it was a fault of mine, but I think ultimately when I look back, it was one of my greatest superpowers in business. I was always very, very successful in sales. I mean, always a top performer, always, kind of at the top. But I was not, like, I didn't focus on the technical stuff. Like if someone had asked me, like, what were the guidelines for a specific thing, for a,
Like, I don't know. Call Joe.
I would say, yeah, I got underwriters, I got processors who'll tell you that. But
Yeah.
let me tell you a good way. Here's a story about how to use the product, or
Yeah.
what type of customer.
I mean, you can ask my team how many times I asked for the link. Like,
Yeah.
I don't freaking know where these things are. I don't need to know where these things are. That is not where my time best spent or where to find the information, right? Like, I ask my team all the time, like, hey, can I have the link for this? Can I have the link for that? Where's the spreadsheet for this? Like, all the time. I am so not detail oriented. I so do not spend the time on the small stuff, on the nitty gritty of the what and the how, right? I spend more of the end goal, that big dream, that big picture, and how we're going to get there.
So, I think one of the most powerful examples for me, and then, then I know we've got some time coming up here, but, I want to get into kind of talking about Your Home TV a bit.
Yes.
But, one of the most powerful examples for me that is my brother Rob. And, Dr. Robert Melillo, he has a show on Your Home TV called Disconnected Kids, Reconnected Families. And again, he's very, very good at this too. Again, we have the same background, the same parents. So, he started a company called Brain Balance, about 15, 20 years ago. And his dream was, he started out with a what if question. And for me and for him, that's the most powerful question we can ask ourselves is
Okay,
what
walk
if.
me through it.
So what if I did this? What if I could create? What if the world looked this way? And the question he asked himself was, what if I can figure out a way to help children with autism, right? Because back 20 years ago, everything you heard about autism was it's a life, it's for life. The best you can do is manage it. We really don't know what causes it. So, the stories being told to children with autism, parents of children with autism, was just start preparing. Don't worry about college. Put that money into something because they're going to have to be in a home someday. They're going to have to be taken care of after you're gone. That was the story that was being told. He wanted to tell a different story. He wanted to create a company and a process and protocols that could help autistic children to actually develop, to get past. So he's one of the world's most renowned brain researchers, clinicians, and so he did. That's what he did with Brain Balance. He figured out how, through exercise, focusing on the different hemispheres of the brain, the different parts of the brain, getting direct stimulus to those brains through exercise, non-drug, interactions, how to help these children. And so, he spent the time to do that. Now he's got this company that he's created with these protocols and these concepts. How do I get it out there in the world? Well, he had experience working with these children in his own practice. So he collected those stories. and he collected the testimonials from the parents about the help that had been given and the changes they saw. And that is the thing that I think skyrocketed the success of the company that he created, because people fell in love with the stories of the little girl who was diagnosed as autistic. And then their parents had to move to a different part of the country. So she had to go to a new school, after she had been through the program with my brother. And so her records went to that school. It said she was autistic. The teacher, when she came into the school, asked her to tell about herself. And the little girl stood up and said, "Hi, I'm Mary. This is my story. I came from Chicago, and now I'm in, Indianapolis. And I used to be autistic, but I'm not anymore." And the teacher said to her, "Oh, honey, that's a beautiful story, but no, nobody used to be autistic. You either are or you are." And she
Mhm.
said, "No, I'm not." And and the truth is that she had the diagnosis, she had the records to prove it. But those kind of stories were what were in his book and impacted parents. So now, Brain Balance, he's actually sold the company. He started a different one now, but um, that was what skyrocketed that company from 0 locations to 130 locations, in this country, worldwide.
Well,
Um,
nothing's better marketing than stories coming directly from the end user.
yes, absolutely. So when we started Your Home TV, yeah, again, Sean was like, "Hey, I've got this idea. I've got this company that this I had this opportunity to create this over the top streaming network. Kathy Ireland's on board. She's going to be an equity partner. I've got all these great people. Do you want to be a part of it?" And I thought about it for a while. And I said, "Well, there's so many out there. There's you've got Disney Plus, you got Paramount, you got Amazon Prime. Like, what can we do that's differentiating or different?" So we went through all the different ways we could do this and carve out a niche for ourselves. And it was about being disruptive and about putting control in the hands of the content creators. Um, and then the overarching theme was, we want to be a network of authentic storytellers. We don't have to go find, these flash, produced programs. We don't have to go out there and like throw millions of dollars at actors and actresses and create these stories ourselves. Let's just empower storytellers, people with authentic stories that people can relate to, that that you would want to be your friend, or create those interesting ideas and stories. And so that's what we did. The revenue sharing is all great. The fact that people can make money, that they can draw their advertisers, that we give them this fantastic technology platform, that it's shareable, that it's growing and all of that, and it's got great backing. But the real attraction is going to be bringing in viewership, because the stories that our programs are telling are interesting.
You get paid for the hour what you bring to the hour. Or in other words, the fastest way for you to earn more is by learning more. Go Get 'em is your chance to learn from those who have walked the talk. GoGo invites all of the top performers in the industry to guide you through your success journey. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The roadmap is already laid out. If you haven't figured out how to make money in your sleep yet, you're not running a business. You're stuck in a job. Join Go Get 'em to learn how to earn passively and have your money doing all the heavy lifting so you don't have to.
To join Go Get 'em community, just go to www.gogetemcommunity.com and we will see you inside of our most amazing entrepreneurial community ever.
So let me tell the world how they can watch these episodes. So GoGoPreneur was actually the very, very first show that went live on Your Home TV. So I'm super proud of that. So you can go to gogo.yourhometv.com and you can stream it right on your computer or any device, right? But also if you have Roku, you can just go on Roku. Then you go to the channels within Roku and download Your Home TV, right?
Go to
After you download
the
Your Home
Roku
TV.
store. That's correct. Go to the
Yeah.
Roku store, find Your Home TV, download that, and then it's there for you to watch.
Yeah, and then you can go and search all of the episodes, and you can, of course, also watch GoGoPreneur right there on television through Roku. So again, or you can go directly to it, which is gogo.yourhometv.com, or just check out the Your Home TV platform at www.yourhometv.com. Also, if you go to gogopreneur.com, if you're interested maybe becoming a TV show, my understanding, Dominic, that you guys are still looking for talent and storytellers for Your Home TV. If you're interested, if you feel like you have a great story to tell and you would like to have your own show, you can go to gogopreneur.com, and there is a further down on the page, there's a sign-up sheet that Dominic's team has direct access to. So you guys can apply right there, and then Dominic's team is going to reach out and see if you and your story would be a good fit for yourhometv.com.
So Gogo, the next phase of development for us, though, is what we've determined is that we have actually been now out there inviting companies, businesses, entrepreneurs, and influencers to have their own channels on Your Home TV, because we recognize that there's this evolution that has taken place, right? So everybody is out there and they created their own website. That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Next thing they did was have their own blog. So great. They've got a blog. They're telling their story. Then maybe they put some short videos on YouTube. And that's great. And then everybody now has evolved to podcasts, right?
Yeah.
So that's great, but it's crowded. And what you've discovered is a better way to tell your story is through having your own television channel, having your own television program, right? And how do you do that? Well, can't go to HGTV, or it's hard to get onto, Bloomberg Business or whatever. Well, Your Home TV is a great option for people, business, for example, who wants to either advertise on TV and hasn't been able to do that because it's too expensive. We're very affordable. So, an entrepreneur, a growing company can advertise worldwide on Your Home TV because we're in 120 countries. We've got 40 million viewers. I mean, it's a great opportunity. It's very affordable. And you say you could sponsor a program, you could sponsor GoGoPreneur, you can advertise on GoGoPreneur, however you want to do, or any other show that we have, because we've got over 50 channels now, 750 episodes. But or you can have your own channel where you can move past the static type marketing stuff, and you can tell stories that help people understand who you are as a company. If you're I'll just make it up. If you're a trucking company and you want to, and you've got great trucks, well, why are your trucks great? That's wonderful. I want to know the statistics, the wheel size, the engine size, all that stuff. No, I don't. I want to know who uses your product. Why is your product important to the United States of America?
Who built it?
You're Kenworth. You move everything around the country. You make people lives better. Tell us those stories about how your company was created, who you serve. Tell us the stories of your customers. Go to one of your customers and tell us their story. What about your workers, the people in your factories? They all have wonderful stories to tell that humanizes your company and connects you to the heart of the people that may be wanting to buy your product or use your product. That's really where we think we are going to be so different, because I don't think there's any network out there that combines personal stories like yours and Kelly Williams and Gretchen Filial. You all have these
There's
great
so many cool stories.
so many, Charles Ham, right? All that
Zen.
tell wonderful Zen, but also gives the opportunity for the business world, the commercial world, to tell their stories and personalize themselves. So that's why I'm very excited about this next phase, because we started out as a network of storytellers, and now I want to make us into a network of that also includes the opportunity for businesses to be storytellers also.
Yeah. And also, the stories build the audience, right? And now the audience can be monetized too, and it's beneficial for us storytellers, but it's also beneficial for the advertisers because now there's millions of eyeballs on their on their products and services. So I want to talk about that super quick. So when you go to gogopreneur.com, there's two ways that you can partake in this. You can partake as an advertiser, so you can go to become an advertiser and apply there. We'll look over all of your applications. I do get to choose who gets to advertise on the Gogopreneur show. I keep that right to myself. But that doesn't mean that you cannot advertise on all of the other TV shows on your home TV, right? So just apply. We'll have a good old meeting, figure out what would be the best fit if you would like to be an advertiser on gogopreneur.com or Gogopreneur show, and also all the other TV shows, or just mine or all the others. So there's a million ways to become an advertiser with your home TV. Just apply on gogopreneur.com. But also on the same website on gogopreneur.com, you can apply to have your own TV show if you would like to have that conversation with Dominic and his team.
That's absolutely right, Gogo. We'd love to see a whole slew of people coming and advertising and sponsoring your show. I think that would be incredibly powerful. I mean, because I think you've got almost 3 million viewers now, at least on your show.
That's awesome.
I didn't even know that, guys. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I think that's where you are at this point, and I don't think that even counts the viewership from the podcasts that we're putting up now.
Yeah.
For you.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because we just switched. So just so you guys know, originally, the Gogopreneur show, I thought what I wanted is for people to see inside of what it actually takes, inside of my life. I built everything that I have today through the power of social media, right? Which is one-dimensional, so said, because I'm usually the one holding the camera, talking to the camera. So you're not seeing what's happening around me. You're not seeing the environment. You're not seeing what it actually takes. So originally, I don't know how many episodes, maybe Natalia, you can put it in, how many episodes we had from the other lens, right? From people looking in and seeing me in action. And then I realized, like, where did I learn the most? How do I know what I know today? And it's through stories. It's through going to these events. It's through picking people's minds. It's from learning from their stories and their good lessons and the bad, the life lessons, right? And so I realized that, like, what I really want to do is to truly be able to change lives through stories of other people who have walked the walk. They have learned some lessons, and then share those stories, so then our audience doesn't have to go through all of the painful side of the lessons, right? When we can teach these lessons that we have already learned, Dominic, right? And then they don't have to go through those lessons. They learn it through the story, right? And so that's why recently this year we switched over to podcast style. And I think we are only 5 episodes in now on the podcast style. I'm not exactly sure how many episodes we had prior to that, Natalia, if you can tell me. So so what Dominic is saying, the 3 million views was on the original version, which was looking into my life and seeing me in action. The views on the podcast side and sharing these stories, we don't even have that yet. So I'm curious to learn where we are with that. So thank you so much, Dominic, for being here today. I want to make sure that that the people that want to get your books, and also we didn't even get to the chance to talk about that you also a music producer. So let's talk about that one super quick. And where can your music be found? Because we found out that your poems and your books can be found at dominicmelillo.com. The music can also be found there. But there's an album that's called Times and Seasons, and you can find it on the Spotify's and the Apple Musics and all over the world. But let's talk a little bit about how did you get into the music side of things? And I want to back this up with one quick thing of, like, guys, look at Dominic. He came from sports, wanting to become a CPA, from there wanting to work in mortgages and insurance. Then he wrote some poems and some books in the meantime. Then now he is one of the founders and the managing directors of a nationwide TV station, right? Your Home TV. And then on top of it, now you do music. Like you can do it all, right? I think this is the title of the episode, that you can do it all. So how did you get into music and why?
It's kind of another chapter in my story, right? So, well, it was kind of, for me, it was an evolution from poetry, because I had all of these poems that told stories.
Yeah.
So yeah. After I retired again, I'm desperately trying to write my story about retirement now, because I still haven't written it. So I'm trying to figure it out. But one of the things I thought was, hey, I called up an old buddy of mine who was friends in high school, and he's this wonderful musician. He was one of these prodigies, playing the piano. He would always dominate all the talent shows we had in high school and stuff. And he went on to have a music career out in California. So I called him one day and I said, "Hey, John, do you know anybody who actually creates music for lyrics that are already written?" And he said, "Dominic, that's a little hard to do. I usually write him kind of simultaneously. I'm twiddling with a melody in my head, and then I get some lyrics, and I kind of put them together." He said, "Send me what you're thinking, and I'll tell you if it'll work for me." So I sent him. I rewrote a lot of my poems and put them in the form of lyrics, and I sent them to John. And he came back. He said, "Yeah, this really works for me. The way your poems are written, the rhyming, the tempo, the meter is all good. I'll work on them." So over the last 3 years, I guess it was about 3 years we started. We went back and forth. He's in California. He was in New York for a while, and we just created music um, that were written, were basically for the lyrics that I've written, and they're all stories. They're basically each song tells a story. Now, a lot of them aren't happy stories because when you're being transparent, a lot of art comes from pain, right?
Oh yeah.
So, in the most painful parts of my life, I've written some very powerful poems, and those I've turned into songs. So they're a little bit. Some of them are a little dark, but other ones are happier and tell a story about when I was in high school, and it has a Beach Boys feel to it. And we incorporated a lot of feeling from a lot of the different artists that I've liked, from Johnny Cash through Creedence Clearwater through the Beach Boys. They all have a different feel to them. So we had a first album called Memory C. That's there, but that's under, we put that under John's name and, his creation, his music with the lyrics of Dominic Melillo. This last album is really just kind of, I did most of the work on it. John and others created music, and I don't sing on it, thankfully. There's a fella out of Nashville who is fantastic. His name is Lee Gibson. He sings all the demos for a lot of the country stars in Nashville. So he does their demo work for them.
So what is the demo work?
Demo work. So when an artist writes a song, right, or a songwriter writes a song, they may not be a vocalist.
Yeah.
So they want to sell their song. So they create a song and the music, and they hire somebody to sing it for the record company.
So that's what they send in, and if the record company buys it, they say, "Okay, this will be perfect for, I don't know, I can't
Trace Adkins or something."
Yeah.
And then they bring that demo record to Trace to see if he likes it, if he thinks he can sing it the way they do. So Lee is
That's how that works.
Yeah.
You just taught me something. I had no idea. So you hired this person to sing the melody of, voiceover.
John, my niece Ellis, who's a singer-songwriter in Nashville, she wrote some of the music. John wrote some of the music. I had another fella, Melvin Lewis, who wrote one of the songs, and then Lee, for the most part, sang all of those songs for me on the album. And then we went to a studio here in Raleigh and kind of did all the mixing and the all of that stuff. That was a lot of fun. That was great fun. And then we finally released it. I guess, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago. I guess it came out.
So can someone go to like any platform they listen to? Like, let's say I listen to music on Apple. So can I go to Apple and just put in Dominic Melillo and find it?
I believe so.
Well,
you may have, again, I'm pretty obscure, so you might have to put in Dominic Melillo.
I'm doing it right now.
Times and Seasons.
Yes, I found you, Dominic Melillo. Yes, so I have Times and Seasons, 6 Summers, Catwoman Blues, Phantom Man, Living in a Jimmy Buffett Song, Our Swords Shall Sing, A Place Like No Other. Oh, I think I know where Our Swords Shall Sing. I think I know where that one's coming from.
Yes, it was actually from the one of the first. That's how I opened my very first book in my trilogy, the Swords of Valor trilogy, because I've got 3 books that are all kind of swords based and historical fiction.
So,
And
guys, if you put in his name, Dominic, it's spelled Domenic, and then Melillo is Melillo. And then you can find him as an artist, and then under his artistry, you can find all of the music as well. So this is awesome. You can also go to Amazon, put in his name, and then find all of his books. So Dominic, you are just a mixture of a whole lot of different things. So what did you learn in the past few years of your life? Like, after doing all of these different things, like you do things with numbers, which is the CPA in you, and then the banker in you, and the mortgage side of the world. Then you do things with music. Then you do things with visual, which is the TV side of things, right? And then you do books. Like, what is your biggest takeaway, I guess?
I think, first of all, that you're only limited by what you can imagine for yourself. And then, if and then you've got to be open to examples. I hadn't thought about writing novels, right? The children's books and the poetry is one thing, until my brother wrote his Disconnected Kids, Reconnected Families book, right? And I was like, Rob, I mean, that must have taken forever. How did you do it? And he just said, well, I just did it. I did it at night. I sat down and I did it. So I was like, if he could do it, I can do it. Right. It wasn't a competitive thing. It was just that there was a breakthrough. I had an example. You think about the story about that nobody had run a 4-minute mile for the history of mankind.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Right. Until the one fella did it. And then all of a sudden, everybody was doing it, right? Because they knew it was possible.
Yeah.
The music, I didn't know if that was possible or not. But I also like variety, and I like balance. I've got to balance the left part of my brain, the analytical part, with the creative part. I need the creative part. I really, really do. I desperately have to find the creative part of anything I'm doing, or I'm not going to enjoy it at all. Yeah. So when it comes
and this probably keeps your life exciting too, because you have something to look forward to, and it's a different part of your brain that you have to access to be like, do I even have it? What does that look like? How do I put it together? Who do I know? Right? Yeah. It's constantly working.
Right. It's about connections, and it's about accomplishment. Not accomplishment in the sense of accolades or anything, but achievement, I think. Is really
like I did that. Like, I have an album, like I have a book, I have you're leaving your footprint on this earth, right? Like your little fingerprints. So one day, that's how I look at it. I'm like, when I am done in this lifetime, am I going to even be a little drop in the history book? Like, is the history book ever going to know my name? Right? I want to leave an impact. I want to have something that I can say I've been here and I've done something. I made this world a better place than I found it, right? That is my goal. And I'm very versatile too. I do a lot of different things. Like, someone asked me recently, what do you do on an airplane? And I was like, oh, I don't know anymore, right? Like, I used to say I'm a realtor, but I have a real estate license, but I don't sell houses anymore, right? I turn the money that I made in real estate into investments and into different business opportunities. And I realized that I'm good with systems and processes. And I turned into, building funnels and coaching programs. And then I got awards in that. And then I built other courses off of that. So it's just like an evolving process of finding out what is my next level. And I think is there, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is there some of that in you to be like, well, if I can do this, then what else can I do?
There is, yeah. I mean, because things have surprised me in my life. I mean, when I went to play baseball at Villanova, I didn't have a scholarship there. I just had a friend who I had played ball with in high school that was on the team, and he encouraged me. He said, you can make this team. So I went to Villanova University. I was a walk-on. I made the team, and then I basically started all 4 years. As soon as the fellow who they had gave a scholarship to at shortstop broke his ankle in the fall before the spring season playing basketball. So they gave me an opportunity to play instead of him. I was a better hitter, so I ended up, I ended up playing all 4 years. I was captain my senior year, and a friend of mine just sent me like the old records for Villanova, like, and like it. I go back, I look, I said, well, I'm in the top 10 in like 12 categories, and I'm like, that's crazy. You just look back and you say, I look, my faith is extremely important to me.
Yeah,
So it's
me too.
important. It's important how the legacy I leave. And so what's important is when I create all of this stuff, they're moral lessons to a certain extent, wrapped in these fun adventure stories.
And they get to
Um,
know who you were and what bloodline they are from and what formed you and who they're going to become from what they're getting just through the bloodline.
they're like these little breadcrumbs, these little this light you can leave to them when their life is dark. Someday they're going to go through troubled times, and they can listen to a song that I wrote about the time I was going through a difficult time, or they can read these books and find out how these heroes, a lot of them have their names in them, the children, my family members, and how they got through those troubled times. Anyway, it's about leaving light for the next generation somehow.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I'm assuming the best way for people to get a hold of you is through your website or through your social media at domenic.melillo. And Domenic is DOMENIC.Melillo, MELILLO. Is that the best way, Domenic?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Anybody can message me, but yeah, my email address actually is dmelillo@yhdmedia.com. That's the Your Home Digital, that's the Your Home TV website. Excuse me, email address. So just email me, and if you've got any interest in being a sponsor or an advertiser, or if you've got a business, or you want to tell your story, let's talk. Call us. We're doing some fun things here. You should, if you want to be a part of it, just reach out.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for sharing your story and shedding light on the importance of everyone learning to share their stories, not just the originated story of where you started and where you at, but the everyday of what's in between, right? And the lessons you're learning every day and the steps you're taking every day so you can help the person who's two steps behind. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time.
Gogo, let me leave you with a quote here.
Love it.
One of the ones that I like. It's a Native American proverb. It goes, "Tell me the facts and I'll learn. Tell me the truth and I'll believe. But tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever." And
Amen.
yeah, I think that's that's kind of what I want to leave for everybody too. So anyway, great. Gogo, it's always so much fun talking to you. You always charge me up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Ready to elevate your mindset? Now it's time for What Would Gogo Do?
What strategies do you employ to maintain a positive mindset during difficult situations? Okay, I'm not gonna bullshit you guys. Okay, I'm gonna go straight to the point. I do try to stay positive, but there are days where shit hits the fan, and not every day is sunny and 75, and not every day you're happy-go-lucky, and not everything always goes your way. Sometimes stuff goes sideways, and you can try to make the best of it. Now, I'll be honest with you, though, I never do. I learned this. I heard this somewhere. That if it doesn't matter in 5 years, don't give it 5 minutes. Also, don't let something bother you that there is absolutely nothing that you can do about. I also heard this quote that said, if you keep talking about the same thing, you don't want a solution, you want attention. So I may lose my SHIT over something super duper quick, but then I look for a solution and then we solve the problem and then we move on, right? Like I never want to have the same conversation with my team a week from today. And I tell my team all the time, if we have a problem, we need to find a solution for it, or we need to get rid of that issue altogether, because there's no point of ever discussing something over and over again. So I don't want you to think that everything is always sunny and 75, but I do try to look at things very simply as a problem and a solution. And if I can find a solution, or there's absolutely nothing I can do about it, then don't dwell on it, right? So I want to say there's very little drama in my life. I want to say that most of the time, 99% of the time, I see the sunny side of things. But that doesn't mean that the negative doesn't peek in sometimes. Being an entrepreneur, guys, it is a lot of hard work. A lot of things can go sideways. A lot of things you're going to hear or pop up that, oh, shoot, we didn't think of that. Or you get an email that can ruin your day. But just don't let it. Don't let it. Look at the big picture. Ask yourself, is this going to matter in 5 years? And if your answer is no, then don't give it more than 5 minutes. If it does require you losing it a little bit to kind of be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, what's the problem? Like, who did this or whatever? Then do that, right? But don't let it ever ruin a whole day. I actually learned that from Tony Robbins. And he said that he had, 50,000 employees, right? And don't quote me on the number. I have no idea how many employees he has. A lot of employees. And one of his employees just did something and ruined Tony Robbins' day. And Tony goes, hold on a minute, let me get this straight. Like, my mood, he said, my mood is so cheap, then I allowed one employee to ruin a whole day, right? You can't let that happen. So that is in your control. To control your mood and to control the level of your sunny side and how sunny your day is it's sunny and 75, that is in your control. Someone can only ruin your day, or something can only ruin your day if you allow it, right? So I want you to look at it and give it the time that it takes to solve the problem, but don't let it ruin a whole day. Don't let it ruin a week, right? Like, problems arise because you need to solve something. Just fix it and move on. So I would say 99% of the time I'm sunny and 75, and there are times when I lose it, but when I lose it, it really doesn't last more than 5 minutes, and then I go back to the sunny and 75 after the problem is solved. Hopefully this answers your question. Thanks for joining GoGoPreneur. Keep that go-getter spirit alive. Until next time, go get 'em.